Hey everyone, it's Cory McCarthy, and thank you for tuning in, and welcome to another public live Q&A event. Missed the last one a couple weeks ago because I was suffering from some kind of bronchitis illness, something. I didn't go to a doctor, so I don't know if it was bronchitis, but it was something. Anyway, so viewers are beginning to roll in right now. I'm going to head over to the chat box and see if anyone's posted any questions. And we're going to get this party started. I hope you all can hear me. It looks like my mic and everything is on, so that should be fine. Somebody actually told me it would probably be worthwhile to note. Somebody in the comments of my recent video said that they really appreciate me doing these public Q&As. And they said it might be worthwhile noting or reiterating, rather, that I do have a super chat feature. It's something that I guess automatically sort of popped up. I didn't really apply for it. But it allows you to highlight your questions, because I can't possibly get to all the questions. I try to, but I can't possibly do so. But allows you to highlight your question, whatever it is, you know, for a donation, whatever donation you choose to give. It could be $1, it could be 50 cents, it could be whatever. But one of my viewers suggested it might be good to reiterate that, you know, to let people know, because they may not know the feature exists. And also that I do private Q&As with Patreon subscribers twice a month as well, and that might actually move up to 3 times a month, and these might move to once. Some of my Patreon subscribers are suggesting that route, and it might be a good idea to give that a go. So hop over to Patreon if you want to support me in that realm and get access to more Q&As and other perks and stuff that I have there. Anywho, moving over to the chat box to see what people have written. So, okay, people have already begun to type. Let me move up to the top here. Everyone's saying hello. Hello to Patrick, Cornberry, Nuno. Corn asks, I'm just going to call you Corn for short. Cornberry asks, how much flaxseed is too much flaxseed? Well, I mean, really, I don't think there's been a limit that I've read about. When it comes to flaxseed, you don't really need more than about a tablespoon a day if you just want to get your ALA omega-3s. A tablespoon will suit you just fine. So I guess if you enjoy flax seeds that much, I mean, they are a healthful food. They're high in fiber. They have decent protein compared to the other omega-3 seeds. But they are a fat source. So if you know, I guess what fits your macros if you really just enjoy flax seeds. But I don't know why you wouldn't want some variety. But really, the better answer is you only need about a tablespoon a day to really hit your ALA needs. Smooth Like Acid says, Cory, hey, I really appreciate that you do them. I mean, they're a lot of fun. I enjoy doing these, except when I have bronchitis, which is why I had to cancel last one. So, and again, I don't know if it was bronchitis, but it fucking sure as hell felt like it. Nuno asks, tips for quick strength and mass gains. Well, there's not really a quick route, but the short answer to that question is make sure you do your compound lifts. Make sure you train everything twice a week. That's the short answer to the question. So some kind of a squat twice a week, hitting quads twice a week, you know, some kind of, you know, at least deadlift once a week, but hit your hams at least twice a week. You know, same thing with benching, same thing with overhead press, and basically every muscle group. But I emphasize those big compounds because they're more bang for the buck. You get more out of doing a compound movement, like an standing overhead barbell press, than you would doing lateral raises. You know, not to say that laterals don't have their place, and they certainly hit the side delts a lot more than the overhead press, but you're going to get more full body benefit from a standing overhead press, just naturally. I mean, it's a compound movement. So I guess the short answer is focus on the compounds, hit them a lot, hit them heavy, hit them with good volume, and make sure your eye is on frequency as well. It's at least twice a week. Those are the guidelines. And if you need an actual program that's scientifically designed, I have ebooks down in the description that you can check out. In fact, my Upgraded Man ebook is really not that expensive. It's actually cheaper than going to a movie. So check that out if you want to as well. Let's see here. Moving to the next question. What do you think about training 4 to 5 hours before the first meal of the day? I train at 5 to 7 a.m., but my first meal is at 10 a.m. That's fine, but if you're going to train fasted, make sure you take BCAAs. it has been shown in research to help prevent muscle damage, like bad muscle damage from lifting. So if you are going to train fasted, take some BCAAs pre-working, like 5-10 grams of BCAAs pre-lifting, or sip some during lifting while having a five before, 5 during, or something like that could work as well. And make sure you have at least a protein shake after you lift. Just a scoop of protein will be fine. And then have your first real meal whenever you have your first real meal that fits your schedule. In my case, when I do morning lifting, I may not eat till 2 or 3 o'clock, but I will have a protein shake after my lifting session. Just a couple scoops of protein, one 2 scoops, and before out of the BCAAs. Are kettlebells good for bodybuilding? Mark asks. Yeah, they're fine. They're a totally fine tool. In fact, I've used them mostly for like swings, kettlebell swings. Although I will admit I prefer hip thrusts to kettlebell swings. Hip thrusts just activate more glute, ham, and quads overall, whereas the kettlebell swings is really more of a glute movement, at least at the contraction point. It's strong and lower back as well, but it's really a glute movement at the contraction point. It's a really hard glute builder, as long as you do that little hinge, the hip hinge at the end. Hey, Cory, losing fat and building muscle on a vegan diet without lowering calories. Well, you're going to have to lower calories. You can do both, and I actually list out the precise formulas for a recomp in both Upgraded Man and Beast Mode by Science. But Beast Mode by Science is a lot more detailed. But you can do both, but you have to keep the deficit modest. That's the first trick. The first trick is to keep your calorie deficit modest, no deep deficits. Second trick is to make sure your protein is ample. That's really it. The two big factors are protein and calories. Not to say that fat isn't important, because fat is important for hormone, but you don't need to go overboard with fat. You can have it to taste. And the same thing with carbohydrates. Let the remaining calories, after you've factored your necessary fat intakes and your protein intake, let the rest of the calories come from carbohydrates. Cory, how to balance schoolwork and gym time? Just curious for your view. I mean, the same thing that you do if you're balancing a full-time job. Make sure you have a schedule for yourself, and make sure you stick to your schedule, and you arrange your social life and things that basically it comes down to what's important to you, really. So if lifting is important to you, and it should be, because it's good for health, it's good for confidence, it's good for looks, it's good for so many things. And as you age, you're going to appreciate that value more and more and more. My advice would be to, schedule some time. Like, for instance, if you work like a 9-to-5 job or something, you get to work, come home. If you prefer to train the evenings, I prefer training the evenings, frankly, working or not. I like the evenings, like the way it feels. I would advise you come home, you throw your stuff together for the gym, whatever, get out there, get the gym done. Maybe you get home around 6, 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, whatever. Get out, get the gym done, come back, and you probably will be home by about 9:30 latest. Even if you get bad traffic a lot of time, unless you're like in LA or something, I guess. But you can work it out, and you really don't need to do more than about 4 days a week. Really, 3 days we fine, 4 days is fine too. Somebody just did a super chat, so I'm gonna find that super chat. Where is that super chat? So, thank you, Smooth Like Acid, for the super chat. He says, I admire your commitment to well-being. Are there any beliefs, religious or other, that influence your commitment to yourself? Are you religious? I am not religious. I am not an atheist either. I'm an agnostic. The reason for that is because I don't have evidence that a God exists. I don't have evidence that a God doesn't exist. Some God, any God, something, some higher power. I don't have evidence in either direction. And I probably never will in my lifetime. So I remain agnostic on that topic, instead of saying that being a staunch atheist or a staunch Christian or anything else, really, pagan, whatever. And that's just me. I prefer the analytical approach. But my beliefs, I guess, in my commitment to myself are the same things I preach to everybody else, is self-love, really. And I don't mean a narcissistic self-love. I mean a healthy self-love. That's really what I mean by that. It's a healthy self-love. I don't know how to better describe it than that. It's like if you love yourself, if you have respect for yourself, your life will be better, and you will also do things for yourself. You'll make time for yourself, and you won't let other people bring you down, I guess is the best way to look at it. And it seems like today, in this day and age, especially amongst the SJWs, they just love bringing people down. There are vegan YouTubers, and I'm sure some of you know exactly some of the people I'm talking about, who it seems like their whole modus operandi is to bring other people down, you know, to criticize. They offer nothing really to the community. They criticize. And if you respect yourself, those criticisms, if they're not constructive criticisms, because everyone deserves criticism. If you've done things that could be made better, if you can be made better by the criticisms, yeah, take them. You know, if you think that you can find value in that. But if somebody's giving you destructive criticism, or is being unreasonable, or you know, or you can just tell that they themselves are doing it because it makes them feel better about themselves, because they themselves are just, for all intents and purposes, a loser. And there are people like that. They seem not to deviate from that path. Then yeah, you will be, if you have respect for yourself, you're going to be less likely to feel the burn from that. So yeah, I guess that's where I come from when it comes to that. Is just self-respect and self-love, without being pathological about it, you know. Okay, so and thank you again, Smooth Like Acid, for that super chat. That was awesome. Thank you for the support. Next question. Let's see. What do I think of neck and forearm training? Again, I promote both, actually. And if you look in my ebooks, I definitely promote both. When it comes to forearm training, the two big things that I do is I do hammer curls. I recommend hammer curls or reverse curls. You know, obviously pull-ups, deadlifts, things like that are going to work your forearms too. Anything where it's going to require, you know, you to contract your grip really hard, and it's going to engage your forearms. The other thing for forearms I recommend are fat grips. If you don't have access to fat bar training, like fat bar tools, fat grips are awesome. I love fat grips. I use them mostly for curling and warm-up sets. Like, for instance, if I'm doing like a light week on deadlifts or something, as like a deload or something, I might do all of my sets with a pair of fat grips. If I'm just warming up to a max on deadlift, I will use the fat grips on the warm-up sets before I go to the max. And same thing with bench press or rows or anything. I'll use like on the warm-up sets. So I won't go to failure, but I'll do the prerequisite reps. Like if I set myself 5 to 10 reps, I'll do 5 to 10 reps and stop at that. But I'll use the fat grips for that. So that's one way. Pull-ups, you can do fat grips with pull-ups too. They're pretty cool. And definitely with your curls, especially your hammer curls. Man, you'll feel that shit for days. The first time you fat grip with you fat grips with hammer curls, you'll feel that shit for days. Even reverse curls too, because you're not only putting your forearms and your grip at a disadvantage in those lifts, but at the same time, which is what makes them more challenging, obviously, for the forearms and the grip. But you're also using a fatter bar, or you're making it a fatter bar at the same time. So it makes it a lot harder, and you will feel that. Anything that makes your training harder in an intelligent way, okay? Don't stand on BOSU balls to do squats, but anything that makes your training harder in an intelligent and strategic way is beneficial for the most part that I can think of, like generally speaking. So, you know, going the depth on squats versus going parallel, you know, doing deadlifts opposed to doing rack pulls or Romanian deadlifts. These are what I mean by doing things that are making things a little harder, because those are harder lifts. They're more taxing, for instance. That's an example. Anywho, moving along. And neck training, same kind of thing. Again, I've done a video. If you search my channel for neck training, you'll hear all about it. Let's see here. What is my opinion on the low conversion of omega-3s to DHA? It is low, but it can get better the longer the body will adapt really to it. And for instance, they've done research. They've looked at Indians. I don't mean Native American Indians. I mean proper from India, people from India, who are generationally vegan. They were generationally vegan. And they looked at them compared to Indians that adopted a Western diet and people in the Western world. And they found that people who were generationally, who have been doing this for generations, the longer they've been doing it, and their children are born into that, they have a higher natural conversion rate of ALA to DHA. But yeah, otherwise it is very limited. And this is why I recommend I mean, your body can do it, but it's not efficient. It's not an efficient process. This is why I recommend you take, you get your omega-3 ALAs as well, a tablespoon of flax seeds a day. And you also take like an algae-based DHA supplement. And you can get them pretty affordably as well. I think I pay about, relatively affordably. I think I pay about $25 tops, sometimes $20 for a month's supply of algae-based DHA. 25 for an entire month. Relatively speaking, I don't find that to be too expensive, really. There are, with the money that people spend on alcohol and things like that, $25 on my health, I think it's worth the while. And it's cleaner than, for those who are watching who eat meat, the algae-based DHA is cleaner, provably cleaner than fish-based, just so you're aware. Ota Cubi, I'm totally butchering that name, says, yay, my first, hi Cory, I'm just doing cardio alone for a week. Is that good? I'm trying to lose weight. I would recommend you mix lifting with cardio. Do not do one or the other by themselves. Cardio is good for your heart, but lifting will help your body recompose itself. Will build muscle tissue. And when you're losing that fat, your body can recompose itself, especially if you're starting out really overweight. So mixing the two is better, but do them on opposite days. Do them the opposite times of the day. For instance, research has shown that if you do cardio after lifting or before lifting, you will hinder the results from both. But if you do cardio, for instance, on your off days from lifting, that's fine, or at least like a full half a day apart. So you do cardio in the morning, like say you do cardio at 8 a.m., you'll do lifting at 8 p.m., or you do, vice versa, lifting at 8 a.m., cardio at 8 p.m. So they're not directly conflicting with one another. Can creatine give you stomach aches? Asks Greg. I've never had that problem, but to say that it wouldn't happen if there's somebody out there with some kind of a sensitivity. Keep in mind, creatine is just amino acids. It's really just 3 amino acids that are bound together. That's all it really is. You can get it from diet. Now, granted, meat eaters will get it more prevalently from diet due to the amino acid combination. In fact, they sometimes get an overload of it, which could be one of the reasons why meat consumption does increase DHA. And for people who are, DHT, and for people who are a little more susceptible to male pattern baldness, might find that high meat consumption does exacerbate the problem. That could be one of the reasons there. But yeah, I've never heard of it causing a stomach ache on its own. But then again, there's just a lot of things I haven't heard of. Unkar Plank says, he says, I watch your videos during school. Don't get yourself in trouble. I don't know how schools are now, but when I was in school, if we were doing things on the internet, and I don't mean doing things on the internet that are considered, inappropriate, but doing things on the internet that weren't pertaining to work, and we got caught. Yeah, and they were always watching too. The fucking IT department always knew when we were on a website that, for video games or something that had nothing to do with the assignment we were working on, and they would come in and tell our teacher, and then it usually resulted in some sort of reprimanding. But I don't know if it's the same way now. I imagine they're probably even more technologically advanced and constantly watching what you're doing. Moving forward. Any tips for getting motivated? Rebirth asks, after a week of business and vacation, afraid to lose gains. Taking a week off, I just want to put that out there first for those who are a little afraid. Taking a week off won't cause you to regress, really. It requires at least 2 weeks or more to begin noticing a detraining effect. So taking a week to enjoy a vacation or a business trip or what have you, or if you have a project you're working on or a family emergency, is not really a big deal. Now, I can understand the psychological aspect of not wanting to take a week, in which case, at the very least, if you can't get to a gym, maybe for instance, if you're traveling, something I love to do, and I go to London a lot, something I love to do is if I'm not going to be at a gym, is I'll find like a public park, or if I'm in a hotel room, something has good anchoring, like something with a good anchor, like a pole or something, and I'll bring exercise bands with me. And I'll train that way because exercise bands weigh a little bit of nothing. And you can get some seriously badass bands nowadays. Like if you go to like Rogue Fitness or you go to Elite FTS, which is Dave Tate's website, or West Side Barbell, or even like Body Elastics and things like that. But the previous three, which are a little more, I guess, you don't have to buy these big sets. You can just buy a few bands. You can get bands going up to 200 pounds per arm, like literally 200 pounds per arm at the full tension. And of course, you can increase that tension by just like putting your arms further apart, or stretching them further out from a focal point where you actually have it attached. That's a great example of a way you can get a good workout in. Now, it's not a replacement for weights full time, but it's good for those times where you can't get to a gym, but you want to get some resistance training in and feel the muscles working, albeit a little bit different resistance. It'll burn a lot more, I found, than just weights alone because of the constant tension. You'll definitely feel it hurt more. That's my advice on that. But as for motivation, coming back to it, if you just can't, it's really just, I guess, remembering what you started lifting for in the first place. Remembering all the things that motivated you. And it may not be one thing, it can be multiple things. It could be that you want to be stronger for your wife and your children, to set a good example, to be more protective, to be more intimidating to predators, people who would do you harm. It could be that you just want longevity also. It could be want to fight cancer. It could be, you want to represent veganism without looking frail and weak. It could be any number of things. It could be you just want to attract women. Hey, not going to judge you for that. It works pretty well. And I'm sure all of us guys, that's been in our minds at some point in time while lifting. I would be lying if I told you I didn't enjoy the attention from the opposite sex that that having a muscular body can promote. So yeah, think of the things that inspired you to do it and just get right back to it again. Set a schedule for yourself. Know that, like, if you're coming back on a Sunday, that you're going to go back to the gym at 7 p.m. on Monday, or something like that. Like, set a schedule for yourself. That's my advice. Do I believe in food combinations? No, I don't see any point in that. I mean, there's some anecdote, like there's people who feel kind of sick, for instance, if they eat fruit first before, more savory foods. There are people that have that problem. I know I've had that problem before. Like, for instance, if I have like tofu and broccoli after I have some fruit, I do get a little bit of an upset stomach. It could just be about how the food is digesting or the fermentation in my gut. I don't know. But anecdote dictates that for some folks, I suppose. Others don't seem to be minded by it at all. But as for food combinations, I just say eat a balanced diet. You don't have to worry so much about, oh my God, am I getting beans and rice in this meal because of the lysine content in the rice versus the lysine content in the beans, and they balance each other out. No, don't worry about that. As long as that throughout a day's time, you're balancing what you eat. It doesn't matter if you're doing it in the same meal or you're doing it across 3 meals. From what I understand, from what I've seen, or 5, 6 meals, whatever you want. But nutrient timing is really up to the person. It's up to your ability to digest and your ability to find time to eat and your capacity for how much you can eat at a time. Unless you're an elite athlete and nutrient timing is essential to your performance, you don't have to worry so much about that. So eat as often or as little as you want, as long as you hit your calories each day. How about essential amino acids when lifting fasted? That could work too, but just keep in mind that unlike with the branched chain amino acids, which seem to have the research on preventing the muscle breakdown during lifting, muscle damage during lifting, in a negative sense, when you're fasted, was done on branched chain amino acids, and they were looking at the leucine content mostly, I suppose, but they work synergistically. So I don't know what the research says about EAAs fasted. I imagine that it would be fine because you had the branched chain amino acids are part of the EAAs. Just make sure you're getting enough of them. So you might need a bigger dose of EAAs, but I don't know why you just wouldn't want to be economical about it and just get some branched chain amino acids. They're pretty cheap. You don't have to go instantized. If you don't mind stirring it for a while or letting it sit to dissolve, you don't even have to go instantized, and you can save yourself a few bucks, And you can get vegan branched chain amino acids. For instance, if you look down in my in my description, I have True Nutrition, which is a bulk website. It's not a branded website, so you're not paying big name prices. And they have a vegan section and they have fermented plant-based BCAAs there. So they have it instantized and non-instantized. So it's up to you. You can pick up whatever you want. And I always advocate, if you're going to buy supplements, buy in bulk. There's no sense in paying for a label unless the label has something completely novel to you that you really can't get bulk or you don't have a lot of options for. That I guess, you do what you got to do. But most stuff is in a free market. There's competition. So Turquoise Lily says, is Propel a good health drink? I don't even know what Propel is. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. If it's a supplement of some kind, there's a lot of like supplement brands, like proprietary blends. I don't really buy those sorts of things, so I really wouldn't know much about them. It's been a long time since I bought proprietary blends regularly enough. Back when I was a lot more naive about lifting and the supplement industry, did I buy those sorts of things. Now, if I want a specific supplement or product, I'll buy it raw or bulk, like I was talking about earlier, just a minute ago. And I'll make my own blends myself in my kitchen. Tastes like shit, but you save a lot of money and you're sure of what's in the product. You're sure of how much you're taking, as opposed to a prop blend, which you don't know exactly always what the amounts are. Let's see here. Yin Yen Chin says, testicles test the best of us. They test our impulse control, situational awareness, and overall coherence of character. Have you mastered your testicles, or do they master you? I don't know really how to answer that, except maybe piece by piece. I'm not perfect. No one is. Impulse control. I have ADHD. I can be pretty fucking impulsive, but I also try to be as intelligent about situations as I possibly can. So there are some areas that I could have better control, like eating. I love food. I love food a lot. I love eating, okay? Which is one of the reasons why, I've had times in my life where I've been a lot heavier. I just like eating food. I enjoy it. Not necessarily from an emotional standpoint. I just like feeling full. I like eating. I enjoy a good meal, especially after I've been training. So I guess I could have a little more impulse control in that department. But when it comes to, like, for instance, I'm in a long-term relationship. I don't believe in promiscuity. I see attractive women. I'm approached by attractive women in certain scenarios. I have been. I don't engage in that sort of thing because that is impulse control in a sense there. I don't engage in alcohol because I know it's not good for me. I don't particularly like the way it feels or tastes either. Same thing with drugs. And any number of things that you could do in life, like that you might enjoy, but you have other things you should be doing as well. Impulse control. Situational awareness. I think that's where I shine pretty hard. I am pretty aware of what the hell's going on in my environment. I'm pretty aware of where every exit is when I'm in a room. I'm aware of people who could potentially be threats. It's definitely something heightened in me. That level of vigilance is heightened in me, for better or worse, and pretty much at all times. I'm a very aware person, and I'm the kind of person that, and this has been remarked upon, but I have friends who are tactical themselves, and we'll go to a restaurant or something, and I will sit against a wall in a location where I can view everything, and nobody can come from behind me. I just do that, not because I perceive there's going to be a threat, but because I'm always ready. I try to always be ready. That's just the kind of person I am. So I guess that I am pretty good at that. But overall coherence of character, I won't say I'm perfect, but I think I've learned a lot about myself, and I understand myself pretty well, and I'm pretty good at recognizing other people. I'm not perfect at it. So I guess, but these are all things that we could all improve upon more and more and more and more. I don't know about mastery, but we can always improve upon it, because I think even the most vigilant person somebody could probably sneak up on them if they really wanted to. They could find some way to do it, Anyway, moving along. How old am I? I know this guy says he knows I take care of myself, so it's hard to guess. I am 37. So that's how old I am. Which it's pretty common knowledge in this channel. But it is what it is. I mean, I take care of myself in diet. I take care of myself with exercise. I don't do things that I know would cause excessive aging. And there's a genetic component as well. My parents aged pretty well until they just stopped taking care of themselves. And then they declined pretty quickly, but they still don't look as bad as they could look for their age. Or rather, as old as some folks on average look for their age. So yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But if no matter who you are, no matter what your genetics are, if you engage in bad behavior, it's going to have disastrous effects for how you appear and look. It just is. And as sad as sad or as ambivalent as you might find this you might be toward this or find this to be, we are a looks-driven society. No matter how much SJWs, for instance, want to preach fat acceptance and whatever else the fuck they preach when it comes to looks and everything else, men dressing as women, women dressing as men. We do judge people based on how they present themselves and how they look. Research has shown that prettier people, quote unquote, prettier people, get paid more, are more trusted, and tend to enjoy more opportunities. So, and while you can't change your facial structure, really, I mean, aside from maybe some extensive surgery of some sort, you can do things like dress better, eat right, lift weights, wear flattering hairstyles for yourself, flattering clothing for yourself, carry yourself with confidence, speak with confidence. These are things you can do that can make you instantly more attractive, and instantly more desirable, even in a professional sense. So keep that in mind too, guys. It's there are things you can't control, but don't let that dictate how you feel about yourself. Work on the things you have control over, okay, and better those things. I'm just going to tell you that, and you will experience a better life because of it. I don't care how you look facially, Now, granted, there are, I guess, some really unfortunate but more rare cases of people who have massive deformities, and unfortunately, I don't know what to say about that because we are a looks-driven society. But if you're somebody who's balding a little bit, or maybe you're not entirely symmetrical in the face, or you don't like the roundness, or maybe your face is too long or something, those are minor compared to the things you can do to change yourself to be better. So keep that in mind. Marco says, greetings from Zimbabwe. Greetings back at you. I have a lot of viewers from all over the world coming here to listen. Wow, my scroller just went really quick. I guess I'll just start taking it from where it left off. Sebastian says, love your videos, by the way, respect you a lot. Thank you, Sebastian. And I'm glad you're getting something out of my videos of value. And Rebirth says, thank you as well. I got it. Oh, there we go. Looks like there's another. Is this another chat? No, it's no. It's oh yeah, we do. I have another chat, another super chat from TCAT. Hope I'm pronouncing that properly. TCAT says, and thank you for your support. Animal products are degenerate and contribute to white genocide. Cucks just can't handle these facts. I don't know if there's any evidence to animal products contributing to white genocide, and that is for anyone who doesn't know, that's a joke on Jared Taylor, who pronounces, kind of talks like this and pronounces white as opposed to white. He'll say white. It's just the way he pronounces, which arguably could be correct, actually. It just sounds very formal. That's what that joke comes from. But back on topic, I don't know if there's actually any evidence that eating animal products necessarily is contributing to white genocide. That's a false equivalence, in my opinion. But there are other things that would contribute to what can be referred to as the white genocide. It is as extreme as that sounds. There's definitely a threat. I mean, whites are a minority in the world, and there's definitely a threat of whites becoming a minority in our own nations within the next, I'd say, the next between about 100 years, even. It could happen within 100 years. So, but that's a totally different topic here. So, And there's reasons for that, but I'm going to move forward. Giorgio Detrain says, or Detrain, I guess that's how you pronounce that, says, I have some troubles with soy milk, soy protein, and products like TVP, but no digestive issues with tofu or tempeh. I would kind of expect with tempeh, it's fermented, but why with tofu? I don't know. Is the tofu you're consuming sprouted? There are fermented tofu products too. So look at the labeling. I don't know what that could possibly be. That makes it so that the processed soy product as tofu wouldn't have those effects. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really not sure. Sorry. Have I ever heard of Glasgow Celtic? No, I'm assuming it's probably a blogger or a YouTube channel. No, I've never heard of it. I don't really read a lot of blogs or watch a lot of YouTube channels, to be honest. I don't have a lot of time for that. I produce videos, but I have a lot of catching up to do on even some of the channels that I really respect, like Isaac of Ask Yourself. I like Vegan Gains. There are channels I watch and I do enjoy watching, but I just don't have a lot of time to do that, and I don't really spend any time on Twitter. Occasionally I'll read Tara's Twitter feed, but that's about as far as I go really with Twitter. And she shares a lot of stuff on Twitter from other Twitter feeds. So, but beyond that, I don't really spend a lot of time on it. Mr. UFC Law says, what about fruit? Brian Clement says it's not recommended. It's not recommended. Only 15% of your total calories by weight, and that's 85% of fruits are hybrids. I never heard anything about only consuming 15% of your calories by weight in fruit. I've never heard that before. I like to see the sources on that. I never heard that before. I say, like, work your fruit into your carbohydrate needs per day, whatever that may be for you, for your figures that you're calculating. That's how I handle fruit. And if you prefer fruit to grains or whatever, go that route. Like, I actually prefer having more fruit than I do grains. I mean, although occasionally I have oatmeal and stuff, but I prefer having more fruit for my carbohydrates than grain sources. But hey, that's a personal thing. But I've never read that before. I never heard that. Eating at night makes you fatter and makes you store more fat than eating during normal eating window. I do fast as I have several times a week. Never. That is a myth. The eating at night. I've not seen any substantiated evidence to show that it has any greater or lesser impact on, carbohydrates as well, on gaining weight. What does have an impact is overeating, for what you burn. That's the general rule right there, is overeating for what you expend per day. That's going to cause you to gain weight. Unless we're talking about like muscle weight, that's also weight gain. But you're talking about fat here, so. Let's see here. Okay. Somebody says you're the beat, bro. I'm like, he meant you're a beast, bro. Thank you, Sarcastic Demon. I appreciate that. I don't know. I don't really call myself a beast. It's kind of like with a lot of these adjective terms. Like, I don't like to refer to myself as things like that. I try to take a more modest approach. But if somebody else refers to me that, then that's their opinion, I suppose. I just do what I do, and that is what it is, I guess. Whether that makes me a beast to some people or a soy boy to other people, whatever. I just do what I do. Talk about Tactical Norwegian. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Is that another YouTube channel or blogger? Like I said, I don't really catch up on a lot of bloggers and YouTube channels. To be honest, I need to do more because I have people that I respect that do those things, but I don't. I just haven't had a lot of time for that. So, Giorgio S., do you think martial arts training makes you more vigilant in public? You know what? That's actually a good point. And I do theorize that could be why I'm more vigilant now, because I was started at martial arts at a very young age, like 8 years old. And that definitely, I guess, maybe more disciplined, I suppose, too, and definitely heightened my awareness of trouble, I guess. That could be a big factor. You know, it could be a number of factors of just experiences in my childhood, some great, some bad, some horrific, that, you know, I went through in my entire life that, you know, has led to me being more vigilant than maybe your average person is, I guess. I guess that's the way, you know, I had that prepper mentality without actually being a prepper in the sense of living in the countryside with like a stockpile of guns and bombs and shit, you know, in a compound somewhere. Although it has crossed my mind, you know, because sometimes I think that escaping to the countryside would be a lot more fun than the city. I hate the city, and I really want to get out of this fucking place. New York is it's just a drags, man. It what it used to be, in my opinion, when I was a lot younger, it's just not the same for me anymore. And I think it's because it's changed a lot too. It's, you know, and I've changed. So sounds like a relationship going bad, right? We're changing, honey. Sorry, you know, going different ways. Mr. UFC Claw says, hello from Romania, Europe, and the only fruit that ripens is the banana. Well, I mean, I use the term ripen, you know, to represent any fruit that I think is ready for consumption. For instance, a soft pear, a soft plum, those, in my opinions, are considered ripe fruits. I don't really look at apples in the same way or oranges in the same way, but definitely things like pears, plums, strawberries of all sorts, really. You know, avocados. I view them in a regard of ripeness versus not being ripe. Not just bananas. But maybe there's some definition of ripeness that I'm unaware of, and maybe I've been going by the wrong definition all this time. So, you know, educate me if that's the case. Daniel Bustamante, I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. Do you need to take creatine if you are vegan, since you can get it from diet? Is it as important as B12? Here's the thing about that. You won't get as much creatine from not eating meat. And that's just by virtue of the collection of amino acids that create creatine. That being said, vegans and vegetarians do well with supplementing creatine. Just about 2.5 grams a day has shown cognitive improvements in both vegans and vegetarians, but not in meat eaters. So it does sharpen cognition in vegans and vegetarians. And so I definitely look at creatine, even for non-lifters, as sort of like kind of like a vitamin, I guess, like for people who are vegan and vegetarian. You don't need to go overboard with it, but just like a couple, you know, about 2.5 grams a day, you might find that to be helpful for you. You know, maybe give it a try, see how it goes. If you notice fuck all from it, then don't take it anymore. But if you notice that you feel sharper and more on point, then yeah, maybe you found something that will be useful to you. Lucifer says 37. You look about 30. I get that. I get people in person say to me, like, you know, they would usually I get people guessing I'm between 26 and 30. Somewhere in that range is usually what I get when people try to guess my age. I don't get carded anymore. I used to get carded, but hey, whatever. Cory, is the plant-based diet the healthiest diet, in my opinion? You mean like the vegan, like being a vegan, or just eating the vegan diet? If we're talking strictly about the diet and not about the impact on animals or the impact on like resources in the environment, etc. If we're talking strictly about the benefits of the dietary consumption point, I would say yes, the plant-based vegan diet, non-animal-based diet, does seem to present itself in the research as being the healthiest, with the healthiest outcomes, so long as you treat it intelligently. You know, you're going to find, you know, there will be less and less foods that are fortified, unless you're looking at cereals, soy milks, and things like that. But less foods are naturally fortified. Like, you're not going to get a can of beans that's been fortified with 1 million vitamins. Where you'll find a lot more fortified foods. Even the meat products people buy from the butcher are fortified, because the animals are fortified on the farms by virtue of soil efficiencies and everything else. So technically, even meat is fortified. But you know, you're going to have to be, you know, cognizant of what you're getting every day. Make sure you're getting your ALAs, your DHAs, you're getting your B12 somehow, like usually a supplement form is what I advise. You're getting sun or a D3 supplement, or you're eating plenty of mushrooms, which contain D2, and that can convert to D3. Make sure you're eating enough vitamin K1 containing foods like spinach, etc. Or if you want to get direct K2, you can eat fermented soy products like natto, probably pronouncing that wrong, which I've never had before, but I hear it's nasty. But then again, I've never had it myself, so I can't say it's nasty if I've never tried it myself. There are things people say are nasty that I try and I love them. I know a lot of people don't like beets, but I have no problem with beets at all. A little earthy tasting, but don't mind them. I like asparagus too. People don't like asparagus. So yeah, as long as you're doing the vegan diet right, yeah. If you're doing it right and intelligently and planned and thorough about all your needs, it does present itself in the research as being superior health-wise, health outcomes, cancer, longevity, aging, heart disease, diabetes, BMI levels, compared to even controlled for healthier Western diets. So let's see here. Moving along. What are my thoughts on sodium? Sodium is important. You need sodium. You don't need to go overboard with it. I think it's something like 2,500 milligrams a day is the top level, I believe. Maybe it might be 1,200. It might vary, actually. Depends on the person, really, too. Some folks do sweat out a lot of salts and might need more intake of salts for health. But yeah, sodium's you shouldn't try to eliminate it entirely, and I think it would be pretty much impossible to do so, considering it occurs naturally in a lot of plant foods. So, what are my thoughts on nucleus overload and alpha destiny? I don't know who nucleus overload is. I'm only vaguely familiar with alpha destiny. I know he promotes lifting heavy, which I think is great. But I think he, from what I've heard, mentioned just to hear people talking, is that he's also a promoter of strange exercises that don't have a lot of benefits compared to a more conventional style of lifting, like behind the back deadlifts or something versus standard deadlifts, stuff like that. I like the philosophy of lifting the big compounds, of lifting heavy and focusing on that, not too into the concept of doing unconventional lifts that have inferior muscle activation or even a higher risk potential for injury compared to a more conventional lift. I know that Alex, I believe his name is Alpha Destiny, definitely, maybe his name is Alec, I don't know. He promotes neck training, which I promote neck training, and trap training. I promote both. When it comes to traps, I mostly promote it from doing deadlifts and shit like that, as opposed to doing a lot of shrugs. But yeah, neck training, definitely. You need to directly work your neck if you want a bigger neck, a stronger neck. That's been shown in research when they've compared people who have done nothing to people who only do the big compounds. People who do the big compounds plus neck training, the ones who did neck training actually developed their neck. The ones who did big compounds really didn't. And the people who didn't do anything obviously didn't. So but that should go without saying. If you're not going to do anything, you're definitely not going to get anything from it. Let's see here. Can I safely consume over 100 grams of soy a day? Is there a safe limit? I've seen studies that have shown a very large upper limit having no negative effects in healthy men. That's the key point. They're healthy men who don't have an allergy to soy to begin with. But if there's some kind of extreme upper limit, I'm not really sure. I've not seen studies that have examined that. I can only speak from anecdote in this regard. I currently, I get a lot of fucking soy, okay? I'm currently consuming at least 371 grams of tofu per day, but then I also have soy in my protein shake, and I have soy in my Beyond Meat products. So I'm getting a lot of fucking soy, but that's just me, and I haven't had any problems. But you're a different person. You might experience a problem that I don't. If you have a sensitivity of some kind of that's all I can say on that. It's hard for me to say, I guess give it a go, and if you notice that you're starting to suffer for some reason from it, and you know it's the soy. That's the other problem too, is people like to say, oh, I took soy and I started getting gynecomastia. You know, how do you know it was just the soy? How do you know it wasn't something else that might have occurred in the same time period? That's why research is so important. Anecdote is not exactly conclusive, because in research they'll control for these finite things, and they'll come to a conclusion based on, well, it can't be this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, and not this, because we had people who did this and didn't do this, and all those controls come together and they can find a conclusion with controls. That's why controls are important. And the controlled research shows that you can eat soy without a estrogenic effect if you're healthy and don't have an allergy to it or something. So check out my Paul Joseph Watson videos that I did on soy, and they're really detailed. They're probably the most detailed videos on soy that I've ever done. Next most would be my video to Greg O'Gallagher and that dude, I can't remember his fucking name right now, that I did something Walker, Chris Walker or something. I did a response to them as well on soy and flax. Anyway, moving forward here. Do I or have I ever eaten meat, and what are my thoughts on the human consumption of meat? I don't eat meat now. I've been vegan for 5 years. I was vegetarian before that, so I haven't had meat since 2002. It's been a damn long time, 16 years since I've had meat of any capacity in my body. So yeah, I mean, I did eat meat up until 2002. But you know, what are my thoughts on the human consumption of meat? I in current society, without, like, you know, here's how I look at this. If things were to collapse, okay, I am vegan because it is morally, in my opinion, there's the moral arguments there for it. I can't justify consuming it when there are alternatives at my fingertips that are healthier for me, better for the animals, and better for resources in the environment. So I can't, there's no justification for consuming, and there's no logical justification for consuming. So I don't. And there are plenty of alternatives that are perfectly healthful, and you can get what you need from them. I've been doing it for 16 years and for 5 as a complete vegan. So that's the first thing. Now, in a collapse situation, I have said before that all bets are off. If shit is so far south that it is literally survive or die, and you've got to go to extremes to survive, you do what you got to do. You know, if you can't be a vegan in that time period, hell, if you've got to hunt people and eat them to survive, it's been done before. You do what you got to do. It's an extreme scenario, and it requires extreme measures, as unsavory as they might be to us in civilized society. But hey, the brutal times call for brutal measures, as I said, and I expect those kinds of times will return. If we look at the way civilization is collapsing right now in the West, we are spiraling that direction. Historically, this sort of thing happens. Collapses happen. Die-offs occur, whether natural or by causes of the society itself falling apart, the fabric of it falling apart. It is inevitable that it will happen again. Now, it might not be in our lifetime. It could be in 100, 200 years. But it is inevitable that it will happen again, and it's inevitable that it's going to happen sooner than later. In those kinds of times, yeah, it may be impossible to be vegan, and you may have to eat people. I mean, look what people are doing in Venezuela right now to survive. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. And that's an example of a society collapsing by its own, just on itself, just falling apart in its own. It's not like nature doing that. That was socialism doing that. But yeah, kind of forgot where I'm going with this, but yeah, I mean, my thoughts on it. Oh yeah, getting back to it. Eating meat and human consumption of meat, there are healthier alternatives. So you have to look at it from different perspectives, and there are definitely healthier alternatives that will increase your longevity, increase your energy, increase your, I mean, like your energy as in how you feel, how energized you feel, increase your, lower your risk of cancer, lower your risk of diabetes, lower your risk of having a higher BMI, unless you're training for muscle. That's a different situation. Athletes and BMI, it's a different ballpark. I like to look, when it comes to your average person, BMI is a fine measure, but when it comes to athletes, body fat percentage is a better measure. And of course, you know, aging process, inflammation processes. These are all things that meat contributes to, and research shows this. I've done numerous videos on these. So my opinion is it's more intelligent all around to be vegan. But you have to come to that conclusion yourself and make that choice yourself. You know, I'm not going to shove it down your throat. I'm going to educate you and show you the research to show that it's not bullshit. I'm not pulling out of my ass. I back up the things I say. And then you have to sit there and make that personal decision, digest everything you've heard, and come to that yourself. Because if you come to those terms yourself and you're not pressured into it, you're more likely to stick with it. That's my opinion. From my experiences, people who aren't pressured into something, who come to that conclusion naturally themselves, own it. They own it more, and they live it. You know, putting somebody under duress for something like that is, I think, it's going to do more harm than good. That's why I don't like these intersectional vegans who and the way they behave. You know, I think that you know, activism is fine if it's educational. Activism is not fine if you're doing it like a fucking fascist and you're trying to force through authoritarian means something down someone's throat. Educate. It has longer term benefits, in my opinion. Let's see here. What do I think about incels? Involuntary celibates, I think. They happen. Okay, they happen. There were times in history, for example, where 20% of men had access to 80% of the women. And that meant that 80% of men, in more barbaric times, 80% of men just were not sexually successful. They did not pass their genes on, and they died out. And the stronger, more dominant men procured the top 80% of women. And the more dominant men passed on their genes more prolifically. It happens. You know, incels are, it just happens. People who are involuntarily celibate, it happens. People who just aren't desirable to the opposite sex. But my thing about this is that I think that there are a lot of people that they wallow in this misery like a victim, okay? As opposed to trying to make themselves better, to better their chances, to better their quality of life. There are people I have seen, I know people who claim to be, incels, but I look at them and these are not unattractive people. They just have an unattractive demeanor and kind of sort of the way they position themselves in life. They are people that if they took better care of their bodies, they pursued a better job, or they just got off their ass and tried to like motivate themselves somehow to better themselves. They fixed up their hair, the way they dress, the way they carry themselves. Like, don't, slump forward like this, but rather walk more confidently. And lifting helps with that too, because it improves posture. These people would not have trouble finding a mate. They wouldn't be the incels that they despise being. That's how that is. I'm not saying that there aren't some people out there that just literally have no redeeming qualities, because yes, there are people who are just not attractive. They're not intelligent. They have a below average IQ, a greatly below average IQ. And there's nothing really redeeming about them, unfortunately. But a lot of people, I think that they don't respect themselves enough and to do something to change their station in life. And they just kind of throw their hands in the air and I'm an incel, and kind of resign, which is sad. You know, resignation is sad. I mean, why resign if you've not tried everything you possibly can to improve? Does it mean something to you? That's how I look at it. Long answer to a short question, but it's definitely a topic that I think is maybe I could do a video on this. Yeah, I mean, it affects a lot of people, and there's a lot of guys and women who like they don't seem to have any self-worth. They don't seem to believe they have any self-worth. Rather, when you look at them, and if you were just looking at them from the outside, looking, you debate me until you get to know them, you might think they're just kind of a shy, quiet sort of, you know, they kind of like high with themselves, but they're not unattractive. Okay, they could do things to change. That's my opinion. Anyway, have I looked into facial exercises? No, somebody, I think it was you actually, Leonardo, who actually brought this up under my last video about facial exercises. No, I haven't had a chance to look into it yet. I mean, I only put that video up a couple nights ago, so it's not something I've had a chance to look into yet. I mean, there are muscles in the face, so I could see how there would be, you know, if chewing gum can help build the jawline, I could see that maybe facial exercises could help shape your facial muscles. But I would also want to see if there's any kind of like drawbacks to that as well, you know. Anyway, do you think I can build muscle? Oh, looks like there's a $5. There's somebody who did a super chat, so I want to make sure I see that. Leonardo da Vinci did a super chat. Oh, he just donated €2, which is about. Is that about $4 right now, US? I think it's $3.50. I don't know. Thank you, Leonardo. But no, I haven't looked at the facial exercises yet. No, I haven't. Somebody asks, do you think I can build muscle if I train every 2 days and do full body workouts? If not, could you explain how I should train and what to begin with building muscle? Well, I have ebooks for one that lay it out in a way that you could basically just literally mindlessly follow along and get results. But if you want to kind of do it yourself, you could build muscle if you train every 2 days. You mean like every other day? That's perfectly fine. Like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday would be fine, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, you know, and then repeat on Tuesday, then Thursday, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Training every other day. That's fine, because frequency is important. Volume is important. Frequency is important. Mechanical overload is important. Muscle damage is important. All of these aspects are important. Rest, diet, they're all important. But for natural lifters, yes, the mechanical overload of heavy, big compound lifts, frequency and volume are all incredibly important. So that's the short answer to it. But yeah, you could gain muscle training every other day. That's awesome. That's actually preferable, you know, if your schedule allows for that. I'm going to answer a couple more because the time is running. I got things I got to take care of too. My computer is basically giving me shit. So let's see here. I'm just going to kind of randomly scroll down and boom, pick a question. That was a question to somebody else. Somebody like, I've heard that in the year 2050, we are forced to be vegan because animal agriculture is not sustainable. Is this true? I've not heard that. But I wouldn't be surprised because we're heading towards a lot of collapses, basically, economically, socially, a whole lot of them. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that might make animal agriculture unfeasible, you know. So we'll see. One more question. I'm going to call it off. I'm going to call it the end. So I'm just going to kind of like put my finger on the screen and right here. Hi, I was wondering if there are any harmful metals or pesticides in lentils or beans, and I was wondering if soy isolate raises IGF-1, causing cancer is concerned. Your first question is about the metals. It could be, yeah. I mean, even organic products have pesticides. They have organic pesticides, which have been shown to have their own drawbacks as well. So I can't really answer that in a general way. I guess like look at the products you're purchasing and where they're sourced from, maybe contact the manufacturers. But as for your second one, soy can raise IGF-1. That's because of the leucine content in soy. Leucine raises IGF-1. But will it cause cancer? Unless you're slamming soy like every half hour, you're not going to keep IGF-1 levels raised enough from what I can see in the research for it to be a concern. It's the same way that like somebody who squats will raise testosterone levels for about 2 hours, then it returns to baseline. It definitely falls back to baseline. So it's a transient effect. You're not going to get steroid-like gains from, for instance, doing squats, alone. You're going to take steroids because steroids keep things elevated. So it's the same kind of thing. Unless you're like, you have some kind of like genetic condition or something that makes you susceptible, I don't see how a transient effect is going to cause a problem. So eating soy and not slamming it like every 30 minutes or so is going to, I don't see that's going to cause a problem with cancer risk. Unless you have some kind of a condition, genetic problem, sensitivity, etc., that might make you more at risk. I mean, your body overproduces IGF-1. I don't know. But, it's not the same thing as like injecting IGF-1. Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut there. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next public Q&A, which will at this point likely be on the 27th of May. Next week is a Patreon Q&A. If you want to get involved in those more intimate, more raw Q&As and show your support at the same time to me, check out my Patreon. It's linked down below, and you can get on board with that for as little as $2 a month. What can you really get for $2 a month anymore? It's like, that's pretty damn cheap. And there's also like voice options and workouts and things like that too. So I have a lot of tiers on Patreon if you want to support, if you want to pay more and get more. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your weekend. Take care.